Joe, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm honored to have this opportunity to interview you. I've always been a big fan of comedy, especially stand-up comedy. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a little background. So you're from Boston originally, and you've been in Florida.
So originally from Boston, my family, I grew up in a small town called Billerica, Massachusetts.
Nice.
That's where I got educated. My mom, she was a school teacher there. It was awesome. My dad, he's from Lowell. He's a professional fighter out of there, which was cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then we all decided to move down to Florida during the COVID era. I had an aunt and uncle down here with a couple cousins. They said that they missed us and that we should just move on down because nothing else was going on. So we figured, why not?
Yeah. That's fantastic, Joe. So tell me a little bit about your career. So what made you get into comedy in the first place?
I've always just been a fan of comedy movies, stand-up specials, stuff like that. I'm a big fan of I'd probably say Pete Davidson.
Oh, I love him.
Maron. Yeah. He's great. Mark Maron's great. Kyle Kinane. I'm a big fan of storyteller comics.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I love storytelling. What's your opinion on Pete Davidson? Obviously, he's been in the news a lot due to his, love life and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like he's just kind of living every comedian's dream of I'm really famous, and now I'm gonna date supermodels. I'm gonna get on SNL. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. But he's doing. I like Pete. I like him. I feel like everything he's doing is just because it's hey, this is funny. There's an angle to it, or it's him.
Yeah, I was so shocked when I learned he had been dating Kim Kardashian. That sort of blew my mind when I saw that.
That threw all of us for a loop, especially the bunch of the guys I do stand-up with. They were like, this is ridiculous. I don't understand how someone looking like that gets someone like her. I'm like, it's comedy, man.
100%. So, Joe, when you moved to Florida, had you been doing stand-up in Boston before that?
So I had done one or two open mics, but it was during COVID, so they were in parking lots of restaurants. So we had some of an audience, not really. But then I moved down to Florida, and then I got the opportunity to go to the Orlando Improv, which is now called the Orlando Funny Bone.
Okay.
Got the opportunity to go up there. They had a little side stage on a restaurant. I got to do an open mic there. I got to meet a bunch of comics that were locals and all that.
I love that.
It just snowballed from there. I've been doing it for 3 years now. It's great. I've traveled to a few different areas of Florida, like Daytona, Jacksonville, some areas down further south, like Fort Pierce, Port St. Lucie, stuff like that. So it's been fun.
That's fantastic. Was there ever a time, early on in your career when you bombed? I know a lot of comedians have those stories when they go up and then the crowd just totally rejects their energy and everything.
There was one night I remember when I first started comedy, and a bunch of us, there was one night there were 3 mics that we were all going to hit, one after the other.
Yeah.
And we go to the first 2, all of us have great sets, and for whatever reason, the third room we get to, the audience didn't like anything that we were saying.
Wow.
So it was like performing at cricket, and at that point I was like, oh man, maybe I'm not funny, or maybe these jokes just aren't good.
Yeah, I got you. That must be so awkward, You guys have a lot of balls to get up on stage and just sort of, do your bit and everything, and it's especially comedy fans can be ruthless, I feel like, compared to other, industries like music. They never really boo the singer off the stage these days, but comedy is one of those few things where it's still accepted to be really ruthless as a fan.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's been plenty of hecklers that have just been chewing us out on stage before, and sometimes it's fun because we're like, oh, we can do crowd work with them.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like, oh man, this dude's 3 glasses of whiskey in.
Yeah.
He's not going to listen to a single thing I'm saying. He's just going to say whatever he wants.
Did you ever get into an argument with a heckler and later regretted it?
So not really an argument with a heckler, but I have had people come up to me after a show. I'm in recovery from alcohol and all that.
Yeah,
I make a lot of jokes about AA meetings are a bad open mic. But I had a woman come up to me after a show, and she was very upset. She's like, hey, I don't appreciate you making fun of people that are in recovery. I'm in recovery, and so is my husband.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's awesome. If you guys do AA, that's great. This is how I handle my recovery. I have to myself.
Yeah, so it's your art. You can't
judge
art.
So I've never really had people argue with me on stage, it's usually afterwards. They're like, I wasn't appreciative of this joke. I'm like, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I know I'm not everyone's favorite comic and all that, especially storytelling. A lot of people just want, I just want the jokes, I just want the funny part. I don't need this whole build up.
Yeah. So when you moved to Florida, you're from Massachusetts, obviously. What were some of the cultural differences that shocked you?
I will definitely say my accent makes me stick out like a sore thumb down here. I was a bartender when I first moved here, and that was, people were every single day, at least once an hour, say, park the car in the Harvard Yard. Yep, gotcha. But yeah, so like, other than like, my accent was completely different. The lifestyles of people are very slow paced down here.
What do you mean?
So like, I remember when we first moved here, I went to go get a coffee and all that, and I'm standing in line, and I'm used to people up north being like, all right, you, what do you want? Done. Next, you, what do you want?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Here, how you doing today? Oh, Stevie, great to see you. How's the wife? How's the kid? I'm like, dude, it is 6:05. I gotta be at work in 20 minutes. I just need a coffee.
Oh my gosh.
So like, yeah, they're not in a rush down here. Like, they're very like, we're gonna get to it when we get to it. Like, just take a breather. Like, even with like, I've applied for like jobs and stuff like that. They're like, oh yeah, we'll get back to you in a week. And I'm used to, in a week is usually like, okay, within 2-3 days I'll hear from them. Some of these places are like, oh yeah, I'll get to you in a week, and it's like 2 weeks later, hey, you still interested in that job? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I have heard that, the pace of life is a bit slower down there. And did you ever, as a comedian, have someone from your personal life find your comedy online or something and hit you up about it? And tell me about that. What was that like?
So I have a joke where I make a joke about my godson. So I say that he looks like a gourd when he was first born. Like, you can say it looks like the mom, it looks like the dad, it looks like an alien, let's be honest. So I made a joke about him, and his initials are his name is Braxton Joseph, so his initials are BJ. So I sat there, I'm like, guys, you can't name my godson BJ. Look at what I do for a living. So my cousin, when she saw that, she's like, this is one of my favorite things I've ever seen. This is great. And I was like, oh my God, I should have just sent it to her. I didn't even realize, like, I'm posting it on social media. Cross it. So that was like a positive thing. But then there have been times where like I do make fun of my cousins and all that.
Yeah.
And they'll text me being like, hey man, please don't tell that joke. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. Just feeling the boundaries out.
So when you first decided to pursue a career in comedy, how was that decision-making process? Was it something that sort of just naturally happened over time, or did you have kind of a moment where you were like, hey, instead of doing this with my life, I'm gonna do this with my life. I'm gonna be a comedian.
I think it was a little column A, little column B. Like I've always wanted to get on stage and all that, but like you've mentioned, like it's scary, it's terrifying. Get on stage in front of, even if it's 2 random people or 20 random people. It's one of those things where you're like, are these people gonna laugh? Are they actually gonna like what I have to say? Are they just gonna sit there and stone face me the whole time?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like you get really in your head about it a lot, but then like you just get like that random surge of confidence where you're like, I can do this. I can get on stage, everything I'm going to say is going to be hilarious. And then that first, like, big laugh you get from an audience, that really is, like, one of those things where you're like, you kind of, like, I want to chase that. I want to see if I can get that again. And, like, it's fun. It's one of those things where you're like, I want to do that more. And then, of course, you always hit those nights where you're going to bomb. You're not going to have the audience for your type of material, your type of, like, presentation.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's more of one of those things. It's like once you kind of get started on it, you never want to you don't want to step away from it too long because you get so used to like, the atmosphere of being around people that are just cracking jokes all night because that's all we do. Make fun of ourselves, make fun of each other, everyone. So that it's just like a fun, friendly atmosphere for the most part.
Yeah, I feel a similar way about podcasting. I feel like since I've started, I just never could see myself stopping. It's just so fun for me to do. I wanted to ask you about your recovery journey because you've been very vocal about your healing process, and tell me about your lowest point and what did that look like?
The lowest point would definitely be getting arrested. That is, I say all the time, it's my lowest point, but it's also like the highlight, because that was when I finally realized, like, all right, I gotta make a decision. Do I want to do drugs and alcohol, or do I want to do comedy? And I kind of was like, all right, well, at least the state of Florida said, like, you have that decision, you can make it. I decided, all right, I'm just going to focus in on the comedy. Thankfully, my parents, my family, they're all very supportive with everything. My uncle, he's also in recovery from alcohol and all that, so he was very helpful when I first started getting sober and everything. But it is one of those things where it's like, I'm very vocal, I'm very open about it. Like, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, oh, I'm in recovery, you don't need to know about that. Like, no, I'm going to get on stage and say, I used to drink a bottle of whiskey for breakfast, and then I would go work at a summer camp with children. Like, there's just different ways that everyone views it and stuff like that. And I view it as more of like you don't gotta look at it as like a bad thing. I think it's kind of a good thing that, like, all right, I hit a very low point. I got arrested. I went to jail. I was on probation. I had a breathalyzer to start my car. Like, all that stuff you hear about in like movies and like just random people on like the news and all that. You're like, oh, that would never happen to me. Yeah, I had that mentality. It happened to me. But ever since it did, like, I've been able to focus more on spending time with family, being able to focus more on comedy, being able to actually hold down a job. Like, it's just been a better aspect of everything. It was one of those things where, like, I looked at it as like, all right, it sucks that I gotta kind of stop doing all this, but it's good because now I can actually, like, do what I want to do in life, and I can actually see things more clearly.
100%. So obviously you dealt with that issue, and it's very brave of you to talk about it so openly and everything. Specifically with alcohol, you know, I've talked to a lot of people who have been in recovery and who are in recovery and part of the AA and sober community. I wanted to ask you personally, looking back, when you first started drinking, what was it about alcohol that really sort of enticed you? Because it seems to be a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah, no. For me, it was definitely, I think it was just like the escape factor, and it helped like just kind of block out noise, so to speak. So like at the time when I started really drinking, so I went to a vocational high school in New England, up in Mass. I studied nursing, one of the top nursing programs they offered. I was very fortunate, very grateful to be accepted into it.
Yeah.
The downswing on that was healthcare's a lot. It's a lot. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on hospice, so I was doing a lot of end-of-life care.
That sounds tough.
Yeah. So that was one of those things where I was like, all right, well, alcohol helps me kind of numb the fact of like, okay, I just spent a 6-hour hospice shift and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or I just had to help a family say goodbye to their grandparent or whatever. Like, it's just, it was one of those things where it was more of like this helps me cope with it. And instead of looking for more healthy ways, like, oh, go to a therapist, go for like a walk or something, sign up for like a gym membership or anything like that, I was like, no, this is quicker and easier. I'm just going to go with this.
100%. So while you were working hospice, you mentioned you dealt particularly with sort of the end of life care. Did you ever have to witness someone pass away?
Yes, I had, in my personal experience, I sat with, I think it was 15 of my patients. I was the last person they sat with before they passed.
Wow. And do you feel some kind of PTSD, or did that scar you emotionally, do you think?
I do, yeah. Through like therapy and all that, I have had therapists say like you do have a slight form of like stress from that, obviously, because I noticed when like I was having trouble sleeping at night, I was having trouble eating, like I was having trouble focusing on just day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
They would mention things like, well, do you feel X, Y, and Z? And I'd be like, yeah. They're like, okay, you have like not an exaggerated form of PTSD like someone coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan would. But they're like, no, you were young, like 17, 18, working with the deceased. So like your whole job was literally you sat with them, they'd pass, and then you'd go load them up into the hearse.
Yeah.
So like obviously.
Yeah, that sounds wild. And I would say, you know, it's one of those things, I don't know if that therapist or whoever could really compare it to the PTSD of a veteran, or because I think it's a subjective, of course, and just the fact that you dealt with that is very difficult. I speak a lot about mental health. You know, I've struggled with a lot of mental health problems in my past, and I'm a big proponent of growth and recovery, and a topic called neuroplasticity, which is the concept of us being able to rewire our thinking processes and the way we think to sort of heal from trauma and recover, or just become a much more efficient and happier version of ourselves. So personally, I've dealt with death in my life. My friends passed away a few years ago, a few of them, and it had a sort of a toll on my mental health. And obviously it's different for everyone. Like I said, it's subjective, but your situation with having to deal with watching these people die and developing relationships with them, and then they sort of all die. You mentioned there were 15 of them as you had been working on hospice. I think you can't compare one or the two, or a veteran or whatever, but anytime we experience someone we were close with passing away, and not even close with, just if we were there or knew them at that time, exactly, it can take a toll. But I want to look at it through an optimistic lens and not a pessimistic lens, because I don't believe in the idea that people can be broken. In terms of the mind, I think we can always get back to where we were and even better. I think it's unlimited how powerful our minds are or can be at healing when we focus on healing. And I really respect you, Joe, because you seem to have come a long way since then, and since all of your issues with alcohol and addiction and everything. Was addiction, do you think, something that was passed down to you through your family and like friends and just people in your environment?
I'd have to say yes, just because, like I had mentioned, my uncle, he's also in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and then my grandfather, he was also very big into alcohol. So I just feel like it's just like a generational thing. One of us, each generation, gets hit with the heavy alcohol drug addict gene, but at least we're aware of it. So the way my uncle and I kind of look at it is like, okay, he was able to stop when he was in his 40s, which is good. I was able to stop in my 20s, which is good. Now with all my nephews and my nieces, I'm kind of hoping we can stop it before they even get started. I'm hoping they can just kind of avoid the addiction aspect. They can just have a few drinks at family parties or whenever they're on their own, just to hang out and all that. They're not going to be like me, who's like, oh no, I'm going to drink until I pass out. Like, nothing to that extreme. Just, I'm hoping that like they'll be able to they'll come to me or my uncle when they start getting exposed to stuff like this to kind of be like, hey, what's too much? What's like a good amount? Yeah. How to be safe about it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Do you utilize any other medicinals or inebriants? Do you smoke weed, for example?
Yeah, so like I got my medical card just because that was one of those things. When I first got sober, I was like, I need some type of vice, and like I wasn't really the biggest fan of like cigarettes and like vaping and stuff like that. But especially with like the insomnia and everything, I did recommend like, hey, maybe smoking weed before you go to bed might be beneficial for you. Which it has been, which is really, that's kind of all I do it for now anyways, is I just kind of smoke before I go to bed, or if I know I'm going to have a family party on Saturday, like, all right, I might smoke with my cousin while we're there, so that way I can play with the nephews and nieces and be more into Duck Duck Goose than usual. But yeah, for the most part, like it's one of those things, everyone gets sober in their own way, so everyone does their own things. I know people that are sober, but they can still drink on the weekends. They just know they can do it during the week.
100%.
Yeah, or friends of mine that are like, oh no, I smoke weed, but like only on Saturday and Sunday, just because I'm at home not doing anything.
100%. What's your opinion on everything that's going on now politically in the U.S.?
I don't know too much politically. Like that's the one thing about being a comedian is like I see the political stuff and I'm like, oh okay, I could work at this, and then it's like, oh, a local man is arrested naked in a McDonald's, and I'm like, okay, but this is more Florida. This is more. But no, politically, I feel like with everything that's going on, I
Yeah.
feel like it's kind of like a very big divide with everybody right now.
Yes, a huge
And it's
divide.
like we're all clawing for common ground, but we don't really know how to say, like, let's work together to find it. I feel like
Yes.
everyone is like, I know what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like a bunch of idiots in a room saying, I'm the smartest one here.
That's a very astute observation you've just made, and I couldn't agree with you more, honestly, Joe. I think that, you know, all of this divide is very counterintuitive in terms of developing ourselves and solving our problems, because you know, if we really want to, you know, say fix the roads or something, we have to all, you know, admit that we agree with each other and just get it done. And all of this divide, it seems very childish. It seems like something we should have moved on from by now as a society.
It just seems very juvenile to see like full-grown adults be like, nuh-uh. Like, how about instead of that, it's you take what they said, you analyze it, and you go, how can I incorporate this into what I want to do? Like, how can we meet in the middle?
Yes. Yeah, and you have all of these adults, you know, they're what's the word? They're you have all of these adults, and they're sort of acting as though they're geopolitical experts, and they know exactly how these certain conflicts should be resolved, and they know exactly how X, Y, and Z should be done. You know, it's complicated. Obviously, I'm not saying that the people in power are like doing things correctly in any country, but I would say that for my message to all people out there who are really worked up about politics, unless you're in a country that's currently in war, just stop putting so much stake on that stuff, because if you want to improve your own life, the best way to do it is to focus on yourself and what's inside your circle of control.
Exactly.
I think that's a really big thing, and I think you figured that out, and it seems like you have. And so what's your opinion on podcasting? Would you ever start your own podcast, do you think? Because you've been on a few by now.
I definitely would. I feel like it's fun. I feel like it's a cool way to, like, you know, you can interact with different people, like different backgrounds and stuff like that. Like, as you said, you've talked to a bunch of different people. Like, you've talked to, like, who are some of the people that you've talked to? Like, obviously, me, I'm a comedian.
Yes, John Everett Martin. I'm not sure if you've seen any of our content.
I've seen a few of the, like, Instagram reels and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I've spoken to a lot of people by now. This is the 16th episode. So so I started it up in April, actually, and I've been going really non-stop since then, and it's so fun. And I love just, you know, finding new guests to interview. Like, when I hit you up, it was so random, and I'm so
it was out of the blue. I was like, oh, cool, pod. Absolutely. Because that's the thing, is like, I'm all about like being a comedian. I feel like it's the more that you can go out into different aspects of everything, the better it is. Because I mean, you can be a comedian, but that doesn't mean that, like, you have to go to only comedian style podcasts.
100%.
Like, I would love to go to, like, any other podcast about, like, oh, let's talk about aliens. Oh, let's talk about, like, food shortages in this place. Like, let's educate you on something. Like, that I feel like is cool. Is, like, podcasts are a way to learn about new things, or a way to get to meet new people and stuff like that.
100%. And like, just you have a brand, you know, as a comedian, and it's all about when you treat life like a business. It's like you want to expand and be in as many different, you know, corners of the internet, especially for what we do, being sort of internet entrepreneurs in a way. I wanted to ask you, you know, obviously cancel culture is a big theme with comedy and everything lately. What's your opinion on cancel culture, and do you think, I feel like we're kind of over it at this point. I feel like you can't really be canceled unless you accept the cancel. It's sort of like they're giving you an invite and you can reject it or decline it. You don't have to acknowledge that.
I feel like, I was going to say, I feel like that's kind of a big thing, especially in comedy. A lot of the guys I perform with, we're in Florida. A lot of heavy Republicans. Some of them are racist. But it's one of those things where they aren't gonna let one person just kind of be like, "Oh, you shouldn't say that." They're like, "Okay, maybe I shouldn't. However, if I can spin it in the right context and make it funny, then it's a joke."
Yeah.
So that I feel like is what it really comes down to. Is I feel like a lot of cancel culture is or was people who were like, "I don't understand something, so I'm just gonna try to make it go away."
Yes. Yeah, it's so another very juvenile thing, like assuming that we can gang up on someone and say, you
Yeah,
know, it obviously in some circumstances it was good to shed light on, horrible people who are like real monsters and stuff, but
exactly.
for a lot of cases it was kind of like we were operating as children trying to gang up on, certain celebrities.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like it's one of those things where you're just like, it's at the end of the day, it's more jealousy over what someone's doing than anything else.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right about that. And do you think that what I wanted to ask you is, do you think, sorry, just give me 1 second.
No, you're good. You're good.
Do- um, okay, yeah. Is okay, so do you think, Joe, that it's ever okay, or sorry, let me rephrase this. Is it ever okay to break the law if you think the law is wrong?
I feel like it depends on like the circumstance of certain things, you know,
Yeah.
just like especially with like today's day and age where a lot of things are changing and a lot of stuff is kind of being like relooked and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, like for lack of a better term, being down in like the South at this point, I know a lot of people were with like the Roe v. Wade change and all that sort of stuff. Some people down here view it as illegal. Some people view it as just a medical procedure. That's one of those things. I'm like, it's completely up to the person. Each person's gonna have their own mindset on something.
Yeah.
So like that's one of those. But like obviously, if it's something like, oh, you killed this guy, you're gonna go to jail. Like yeah, obviously you should.
Yes.
Unless it's like, oh, they broke in. But then you got to look at it as like, did they break into your house? Were they breaking into your car? Were they threatening you first? Like there's always circumstance. I feel like with everything,
Yes.
and that's why I feel like it's important for us to be open minded when it comes to listening to people talk, especially in a court case, for instance, because it's one of those things. If you kind of say, all right, for lack of a better term, white guy and black guy against like comparing, all right, the black guy robbed the white guy. I'm just going to automatically assume he did it. I'm not going to look at, oh, maybe the white guy drew on him first and then he just kind of wanted to get out of there or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's important for us to kind of look at both sides of the coin of like, okay, we're saying he got caught doing this, but what was the lead up to it? So we can have the whole. I feel like that's the thing that gets lost a lot is the whole story.
Yeah, 100%. Do you support recreational marijuana becoming legal in Florida?
I do support it, just because I personally feel like, at least speaking from my own experience, if I was able to smoke weed more, like more openly and less like secretively, as opposed to like, oh,
Yeah.
here's like Adderall, here's Xanax, here's like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably wouldn't have been as bad with drinking or drug addiction if it was more available, just because it's just weed. In my opinion, I feel like that's not really a gateway drug to anything except for a good movie and a fridge. Like
Yeah.
that's what I think. But at the same time, you know, I know plenty of people who are like, oh well, if you let people be legal with recreational weed, they're going to smoke and drive. Yeah, well, people drink and drive every day. So I mean, like, it's one of those things where you got to just look at it like, all right, well,
Yeah.
if you're gonna say you can't smoke and drive, but you just went to a bar, had a beer, and now you're going home, you're drinking and driving. So I mean, it's like, where's the line?
Yeah, 100%. I really do think they should clarify that more. And I think that they should, develop a safer system of driving too. I'm a big fan of, reimagining how we do things instead of
Yeah.
just building on to what we already have. Um, I wanted to ask you about Elon Musk. I tend to ask my guests their opinion. So, what's your opinion on Musk? He's been in the news a lot lately.
Yeah, I just want to know when he's finally going to colonize Mars because he's been talking about that for a minute and he still
Yeah.
hasn't left. Like, I just
Do you
want to
do
know.
you remember like back in the 2000s when he was talking about that?
Yeah,
Yeah, like he's
I
really thin.
remember when he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna get there." I'm like, "Yo, okay, like let's pump the brakes a little bit, buddy."
Yeah.
But you know,
Well, I want us to go to Mars, to be honest. What do you think
I
about
think it'd
that?
be cool. I think it'd be
Yeah.
interesting just to see like, oh, okay, like we can get there and back. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I saw The Martian with Matt Damon back in
Oh, I
theaters.
love that one. Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
I'd like to see it in our lifetime. I think it'd be cool to experience. Like, I'm not saying I personally want to go, but like to be able to say like, okay, I got to see the launch that went up there, landed the people there, and that started everything.
So if I came to you today with a ticket to outer space for free, you just go up into space on the rocket, you have the view and everything, then you come back. Are you gonna take it?
Oh, absolutely. I would
Yeah?
love. I feel like that would be really cool. At least once in a lifetime experience, just to kind of go
Yeah.
up, even for a couple hours, do a
Yeah.
little top loop, and then just come down into the ocean.
Did you know that a bunch of celebrities did it recently? Like Katy Perry went up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my friend's girlfriend actually worked on the rocket that sent them up.
No way. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that.
my friend Peyton, she works for Blue Origin, and I remember she told us like a week or two before everything got released. She's like, "Hey, we got some big things going on." I'm like, "You guys going? You guys going to Mars?" She's like, "No, better." I'm like, "Ah, let's."
That's so funny. Yeah, I would love to go to space as well, and you know, I'm fascinated with the potentials of outer space because I think we can solve a lot of our issues through space.
Oh,
Like for example, resources. There are more resources in the universe than we can imagine. Like all the building materials we need, and like
oh yeah, all the
uh,
minerals and stuff like
yeah,
that.
the
we
rare
need for
earth
phones
metals.
or whatever. Yeah, all that stuff is just floating on asteroids.
Yeah,
Why we gotta
and
invade countries?
so you said you would go to space. What about I come to you with a ticket to Mars and you have to stay there for a week?
Oh, am I doing shows in Mars? No, I'm kidding.
You could live stream, like you could like film a video up there.
Honestly, as long as there's been like a handful of
Yeah,
shuttles that
yeah,
have
of
successfully
course.
gone up, I don't
You
want to
wouldn't
be
be
like
the
a
first?
challenger. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't want it to be a challenger.
Really? Oh yeah.
But no, I feel like if they were like, yeah, no, like it's safe. We've done it a bunch of
Yeah.
times. We've done a bunch of like just civilians up and down. I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's go up there
Yeah.
for a long week. Let's go for a month, whatever.
Yeah,
I
well,
feel like just to see what the atmosphere and the experience is all like.
100% Joe. And I want to tell you something. I really think that you will get to do this in your lifetime. And here's why I think so. So if you look back in time, like take anything, any new technology, like the
Oh yeah,
computer. When they invented the first computer in the 1950s or maybe even late 40s, like the and only at the time when they invented the computer, only the wealthiest people and companies in the world could get a computer. But just years later, now everyone can get a computer. Almost everyone, it's a cheap computer, some sort of small computer. So right now, we see the super wealthy going into space all the time. I think it's not very long at all before it becomes easy for all of us to go to space.
oh,
And I
yeah.
think, yeah, I mean, I could see you going to space, Joe, before you're 40.
Honestly, with the way that they're moving with everything, I mean,
Yeah.
just the other day, sitting on the beach with my friends, we watched like 3 or 4 different rocket testings go up.
Really, what's that like? So you're in southern Florida.
Yeah, I'm in what's called Melbourne, Florida. So
Okay.
that's about like an hour south of Orlando.
Got you. So living in that part of Florida, obviously the rockets and everything are not too far away. You have NASA and
Yeah.
the different launch sites. What is that like? Do you get a lot of people coming through town who are like enthusiasts, rocket enthusiasts?
We've had people. I met a couple from Australia about maybe 2 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And they were on vacation in Florida for a month, but the main reason they were here was for a shuttle launch that was happening like the day or the day after they got here.
Yeah.
And they said they're like that was the main reason we were here was to see the shuttle.
I
And I
love
was
that.
like, okay, I get it. Hey, it's cool. And they said like they went to like the actual Cape Canaveral where they launched it up and everything. They sat there, they watched it with a bunch of other people. It was cool and all that. They loved it. And then I'm pretty sure while they were here, they went to like a couple other ones. But no, it is cool. I like that. It's one of those things. Some nights, just sitting on the back porch, I'll just see a big stream going up, bright light. And I'm like, okay, they're just launching stuff right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's called Cape Canaveral, the site where they do this stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's
that
usually
is
where they
NASA.
want. Yep.
Or what about SpaceX? Isn't it also in Florida?
I think he has something in Florida. I know he does
Yeah,
a lot of stuff out in Texas, though. I think.
yeah.
I don't know if it's building the rockets out there or launching them out there.
Do you know why NASA launches from Florida?
I honestly, I don't know. If I had to guess, it's probably because it's a peninsula and we got water on all sides. So that way they can kind of angle it if it's going to go and anything were to happen, they can have it land over the ocean.
I'm just looking it up right now.
No, you're good.
Um, it's a favorable geographical location near the equator and its access to the Atlantic Ocean. Being closer to the equator provides a speed boost from Earth's rotation, saving fuel. It allows for launches over the ocean, enhancing safety by minimizing the risk. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I feel like
Yeah.
they could have done it from probably anywhere, but Florida seems to make sense, and maybe they, spent a lot of time making that decision. So the
Yeah.
topic of outer space brings us to a topic I'm really fascinated with, Joe.
Yeah.
Extraterrestrials. What's your
Absolutely.
opinion? Are you a believer in aliens?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Why?
I just feel like there's way too much stuff in the world, or just like like monuments and stuff like that, like Stonehenge, or like
Yes.
what's the that giant statue where it's supposed to be the man between like two bridges or something like that, but it's only like the legs at this point. I'm
Yeah.
drawing a blank on what it's called, but like it's just certain structures I feel like are just unexplainable. Like
Yes.
Stonehenge
I'm
and
a
stuff like
big
that.
I'm very fascinated with this, topic. Those
Yeah,
structures like Stonehenge, the pyramids, all of the stuff in Peru.
yeah,
There's these different ancient things, and the traditional archaeologists will tell you one thing about how they think they know exactly when it's from, but recently you have sort of new age archaeologists who are pointing out a lot of our understanding of this stuff is actually wrong.
yeah.
Have you seen any of that? Do you know about Graham Hancock?
No, what's his deal? What's he doing?
So he's a very famous archaeologist and also author, and he's
Okay.
written a lot about history and archaeology, specifically how certain sites, he started off, I believe, heavily in Egypt as an Egyptologist, studying the pyramids over there, and he learned a few fascinating things. One was that the pyramids, well, obviously, as we know, let me just look up a summary.
Yeah, you're good.
Um, okay, uh, so I need to get like a Jamie from
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Jamie.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what he proposes is that the Sphinx, right? That statue of like a lion kind of in
Yeah,
Egypt.
yeah.
So what Graham Hancock proposes is that the Sphinx is significantly older than traditionally believed. Um, Traditionally, they think it goes back to, 10,500 uh, years ago. Or no, okay, so traditionally, archaeologists believe that the Sphinx was built 4,500 years ago.
Okay.
Graham Hancock believes it was built 10,500 years ago, due, I think, specifically to the erosion that he and his colleagues noticed on the Sphinx. So they realized that it had been eroded significantly due to rainwater and rains and water. And then they studied and looked at the charts and the historical data, which showed them that this area in Egypt didn't experience that sort of rain. And for it hasn't experienced that sort of rain for over 10,000 years. You know, so
Okay.
it brings you to think like a lot of these structures could be a lot older, and our idea of them could be very wrong. There's a lot of
Yeah.
evidence that suggests that those pyramids in Egypt, that certain ones were not built by the ancient Egyptians in the 4,000 years ago, but by Egyptians, people in that area, you know, thousands of years prior, and certain Egyptian pharaohs could have simply kind of graffitied their names onto them and
Yeah.
utilized them as tombs. But the reason that we think of them as tombs, right? Pyramids. There's a lot of evidence that suggests they might not have been tombs. Because when you think about something as splendid and magnificent as a pyramid, like in Egypt, you would think like when you look at it on the outside, it has all of these massive blocks. They weigh 10, 20 tons, some of them more, so precisely fit together that
Yeah.
it would have been smoother when it was built than the surface of a pool ball. The whole thing together. The amount of carpentry, masonry work, and etc. that would have been required, combined with the immense weight, it simply would have been impossible with any of the techniques that we suggest they had used. They come up with all these ridiculous ideas, like they had ramps and
Yeah.
rolled these stones on logs. So they went to quarries tens to hundreds of miles away and meticulously mined this stone to lug it using logs and everything. When you look at that region, there aren't abundant, massive trees that would provide such logs in that region. But
Yeah.
why would they have done that? If there was a society, 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, whatever, these people were focused on survival, primarily in their life, because they didn't have things like doctors. They had doctors,
Yeah.
but no medicines or real things like that. They were constantly worried about putting food on the table. They had agriculture, but it wasn't as reliable as it is today because of famines and floods and
Yeah.
whatever.
How to
You know,
protect themselves from natural disasters and stuff
yeah,
like that.
they weren't focused on vanity, right? So why
Yeah.
would they take millions and millions of man hours, thousands and thousands of men, and use them to build a tomb? It just doesn't really logically add up when you look at all of the problems they were dealing with at the time.
Yeah.
So I think, there's a lot of mystery there, and we would be foolish as humans, and especially scientists and archaeologists are very foolish to assume that they know exactly how these things came to be. And it seems as though they're willing to die on that hill for whatever reason. So they accuse Hancock of being a pseudo archaeologist.
Okay.
Yeah, or whatever it is. But, I personally have a lot of beef with the mainstream archaeologists, and Peru is another place. And I'm sorry to just go off on a
No,
rant
you're
about
good.
this.
You're good. This,
But
like I said, I like podcasts because I learn something from them most of the time.
yeah, but like, it's just fascinating. And when you look at Peru, I spent a lot of time there myself examining some of these structures, but you've got walls, right? Massive stone blocks,
Yeah.
thousands of pounds, and they have a wall. You know how a traditional wall will have, or brick wall, right? Will have, each brick has four sides,
Yep.
like when you look at it 2D on the outside. Four sides. That's the most efficient way to carve blocks when you're trying to fit them together stack them together. You don't want it to be a circle or something like that. How are you going to stack them? It's
Yeah.
four side blocks, the same pattern for everyone. It's efficient. It's easy. The ancient people in Inca were creating massive stone walls, again, smoother than the surface of a cue ball, that had, each stone had about 7 or 8 crazy sides to it. And you can, I don't know if you can look it up, but it's called like the 7 side wall Peru, or let me see.
Let's see.
In Cusco. Let me see what it's not 7 side. Um, it is yes, the 12 angled stone in
Okay.
Peru. And this is a fascinating thing, because if we were to try to build something like this today, it would be rather difficult given how smooth the connections were. Also considering this wall is thousands of years old, so you have to
Okay,
consider
yes.
the
Yes, I have
erosion.
seen this wall. Yeah, no, yeah, we wouldn't be able to recreate this today. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's like yeah, and they don't know how old it is or anything. And the I talked with people in Peru, some of the local people, and they told me that these walls were from the ancient Incans,
Hmm.
and they have no recorded history of who those people were or anything. We know about the more modern Incan Empire, which existed in the 1500s and sort of fell to the Spanish Inquisition. Um, that we know about. We know about them. We know about the names of the kings and everything, and they had lived in Machu Picchu and those different ancient places.
Yeah.
But but we don't know about the ancient Incans, who they were, where they came from, how they had such advanced building techniques at the whenever they lived. And it's one of those conundrums. Omagli Tepe in Turkey is another one.
Hmm.
That is a fascinating site. They date it to 12,000 years old, and it's roughly 12,000 years old.
Yeah.
The building techniques are unlike anything we've seen in the ancient world or even in our world today. Um, Human history to me, Joe, is just so fascinating.
Oh yeah.
Do you ever just stop to think about, the past and like how do you because I respect both ways of looking at it. I respect people who live, looking at the past and being confused and perplexed and intrigued, and
Yeah.
also some people want to look more in the present and future and be more in the moment. And I think both ways are fine and great ways to live. So what do you think about that?
I think it's good, like you're saying, be having an open mind and looking at both sides of the coin is
Yeah,
always good. I do think we do have to, regardless of how much you want to be in the present and look forward, you got to remember we couldn't be where we're at right now without all the advancements that we've made.
100%.
And what I think is really cool, especially like you were saying, like sometimes like I'll just stand around down here in Florida and I'll look at like some of these islands that are just off the coast of the shoreline that I'm at, and I'll be like, how does this one thing get to just be here? Like, how is this sustainable?
Yeah,
How is this like you can kayak out to it and stuff like that? Like I've done that with my friends before. We've gone out to some of these small islands.
I love that.
Oh yeah, we got like this type of fish is only here. I'm like, all right, but why? Why is it only
Yeah.
on this island? Why do I have to row for 30 minutes out in the middle of nowhere to find this one cool looking fish? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
Let's look it out. Let's figure it out.
Oh my gosh. That brings us, I'm sorry to get so deep, but it brings
No,
us
you're
to a
good.
really, deep topic. What is your opinion on life? And what's your opinion? Why do you think we exist? I'll just ask you flat out. Why do
I,
we exist?
I feel like we're here to learn something.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like like my family, like my mom and I are really big in like you live your life until you get it right, for lack of a better term. So it's like you
Like
kind of
reincarnation.
yeah. So like you'll experience the same things. Like if you're someone who's very like anxious all the time, maybe you have one life where you just learn how to deal with anxiety. Maybe you're someone who really wants to be a teacher, so you spend one whole life learning how to teach. Maybe you're someone that wants to be a NASCAR driver, so you just dedicate everything into doing that. So I feel like everything is just kind of we're all here just to have an experience and have fun. And the more people that you can be around with that have similar mindsets, similar like yeah, this is what it's all about. I'm just here to have a good time. I just want everyone to be happy. We don't need any of this drama, any of this negativity, anything like that. We
I
just need
love
to,
that.
yeah, we just need to
Yeah.
exist, work together. If you know something I don't, teach me. If I know something you don't, I'll teach you. Like it's all about like we don't need to be gatekeeping as people say all the time.
Yeah.
Stuff like no, there's no point in that. Like
I think yeah.
if I know something that's going to be beneficial to you, like why would I be like, nah, you gotta earn it. Like nah, dude, here you go, take it, run with it.
Yes. I think what you're getting at is so big. It's a huge mindset shift when you go from the guy who's more conceited and judgmental and not really doing your own thing, when you switch to become the guy who's doing your own thing and also supporting, loving, and appreciating others, it's a huge mindset shift. And it seems like you're definitely on that vibe, and you just seem like a really happy guy in general. And I think what else could we strive for than to be happy? It's like,
That's the thing.
and
Especially with everything going on in the world, there's so much. Like, I mean, just this past Saturday, we bombed Iran and shit. So, I mean, like, hey, look, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. There's a lot of negativity in the world. If I can make this very small corner that I'm in a little bit brighter, I think that's a win.
I love that. Yeah, I really do love that. I think like, I think it's all great. And would you say that you're happier in Florida than you were in Boston?
I would say yes, only because, don't get me wrong, I mean, clearly big old Boston fan, gotta wear a Bruins hat around this thing. But like, I think it was better for me as a person, just where I was kind of struggling with addiction and depression and all that while I was up there. Like, the winters up there are long. They're up to 6 months.
It's tough.
So I feel like that was just kind of something that hindered on me for a while, and now being able to be down here in the sunshine for the past couple of years.
I envy that.
Yeah, it's kind of like rewired my brain, as you were saying, to like, oh, okay, things aren't that bad. Like,
literally.
Deep breath. So like now I feel like I could easily go back up to Massachusetts, and I could move back up there, and I'd be like, oh, okay, like I just know, all right, for the next couple months, all right, it's going to be rough seeing sunlight. That's fine. Maybe I plan a vacation to go back down to Florida or somewhere sunny or something like that.
I love that. I love that so much, and because you give me a lot of hope too, because I know that being in a colder climate, it takes a toll on my mentality in some ways. And I've always like really loved, since I was a kid, going to Florida, it's like, that is like the dream, from a kid who's up north. It's like,
exactly.
I would fantasize about it. Like,
that's what we all dream about. The second November hits, we're like, oh man, sunshine ain't that bad. Beaches are pretty nice.
100%. Yeah. There's something so primal about it too, where we're like, just the sunshine, the cool breeze, like the warm air. It's so nice.
Just
the bright tropical plants.
Oh yeah. Just having like lizards chill on your back porch with you while you're just hanging out having breakfast. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I just asked my last guest this question. Say China takes over the U.S. randomly tomorrow, or like China and Russia together. How hard do you think it will be for us to assimilate to Chinese culture?
Oh, I feel like we are up the creek without a paddle on that one.
What do you mean?
I feel like I feel like there's so many people that are just going to be like, nah, I'm not doing that. And then they're just going to be like put in a camp or something. They're going to be like, listen, I'm still not doing it. Like, I just feel like we're so many, like, people are just so Americanized where it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do my own thing. Like, what do you mean I can't go to McDonald's right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would take it easy on us to start because they recognize the cultural difference, and it would take some time. But I think, give it 10 years, most of us would be speaking Chinese. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like, in all honesty, within 2 years, like, those of us that are like, no, I want to make sure I'm, like, in good. I want to be living fancy, all right?
Yeah, 100%. Talk to me about dating in Florida. What is that like? Are you single currently?
No, I actually just recently started a relationship with a girl earlier this month, which was cool.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a very different beast down here. Like, Florida crazy and New England crazy are two different things.
What do you mean?
So like, there's plenty of times like I'd go on dates with a girl in New England, and like, you know how it is in Mass. Someone steals your parking spot, you're gonna get out and you're gonna cuss them out. Yeah, that's fine. Up there, that's perfectly fine. Down here, they're very quick to just say, "I have a gun," and I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm just trying to get us a reservation at a Denny's. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, it is very different just because it is very more like up north. It's very like, obviously being from Boston, like very like in the fall, very pumpkin spice, very apple picking.
Yeah.
Like hell, like if you don't wear at least one of the four sports teams up there when you leave the house, it's sacrilege. Like it's one of those like that. Down here, it's very like beach vibe, very laid back.
I love
But,
that.
like the most common question is like, "Do you have a boat?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." I'm like, "I have a fishing boat." They're like, "That's not what I mean." I'm like, "Yeah, I know it's not what you mean, but I'm this is what I get. I'm working with what I got here."
Oh my
But no, I would
gosh.
say like it's not. I think the most different thing was when I got sober and started dating, because then I
Yeah.
realized like, oh, I have standards now. Like this
Yeah.
is you can't hold a conversation. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still gonna pay for dinner, but I'm gonna leave. Like my bad.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think that there's a lot to that, if you're struggling with an addiction, sometimes the people you're interacting with or surrounding yourself with, you'll later realize when you're sober that those people were not productive,
Exactly.
in positive ways to be
Yeah,
around.
they didn't really have your best interest in mind.
Yeah.
It was more like, oh, you just have a connection for something I need. You're basically a middleman, really.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was something that was like a big game changer. Is it's like, oh no, like if I don't have to be with this person because I don't need X, Y, or Z. I'm like I'm good nowadays. I'm just like, oh, you just how you're gonna be. Okay, but that's fine. That's fine. You do your thing. I'm gonna go do my thing.
If a Chinese government official reached out to you and offered you a very high paying job, but you have to start promoting China in all your comedy and like kind of kowtowing to them, would you take the job?
I feel like it's money. I feel like it would be like one of those things, like depending on how
How
much
much
they
money?
want me to do it, like not even that, just how much they want me to promote certain things.
Yeah, what if they just want you to like subliminally sneak it into like almost everything you say where you like
Oh,
have
I can do
something.
that. I can do that.
Yeah.
That's a game I play on my own, where it's like, how many times can I sneak in the word sloth into this stand-up set? I got 15 minutes. Let's see how many times I can reference an animal.
That's so funny. Guys, China, if any Chinese government official is watching right now, I'm open to a sponsorship. I will
Oh,
work,
absolutely.
tirelessly to slip in, subliminally into my content, pro Chinese things, but there's a price to that. I'm not gonna do it for free.
Exactly, exactly.
And okay, so I know you're a busy man, Joe, but I wanted to ask you because I brought up what if China takes over? How will people react? What about, something that could happen? What if aliens take over? Because what if one day aliens are like, you guys are going too far. There's too many nukes. It's
Yes.
not safe anymore. We're just gonna, take control now. How do you think people are reacting? Would we get over it quickly, or would we resist?
I feel like it would be one of those things where, like, at first, it would be like in every alien invasion movie where we're like, "You're not gonna take our stuff," and then they go zap, and then it's like, "Okay, you can take some of the stuff."
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would be more of like, I feel like personally, just like because of like, there's such that big divide of like, oh, aliens are real, aliens aren't real. I feel like it would be more if aliens showed up. Those of us that are like they're real would spend more time being like, "Told ya," than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, we wouldn't really care. It's like, Rogan said it the other day. What he said is like the things that exist for real
Yeah.
are so crazy that if that but we spend all our time thinking about what doesn't exist, what we don't know to exist, and
Yeah.
how crazy that would be. But when you actually look at the things which exist for real that we know are real, such as an alligator, how crazy is a fucking alligator?
Oh
It's
yeah.
a
I see them all the time, dude. Like,
yeah,
and I'm like, this isn't real. Like the fact that
yeah,
it can't lift its snout. If you go like that, it can't do anything, which is
yes.
wild to me.
And they only need to eat like one time every year. It's
Yeah.
crazy. How could they do that? And it's been like the same for hundreds of millions of years since the time of dinosaurs. And they're just like slither around like snakes, and they have legs, and they walk and they swim. It's crazy. Imagine, Joe, if we didn't know that they existed and it was a myth. It would be
Oh
like
yeah.
just as crazy as a myth as any of the like Bigfoot. Like what Rogan said, he was like, if Bigfoot existed, like if we actually finally found Bigfoot, he would just end up in the zoo next to all the other, gorillas or whatever, and it would be like, oh, that's a gorilla, that's a bigger gorilla, and then people would just walk by it and not really care. It's like the things which actually exist are fucking crazy. So it's like, yeah, sure, there could be crazy aliens, but also there are us. Like, what are we? We don't even know what we are. Like, we don't know what these animals are. It's crazy. But I'm sure you see a lot of crazy animals in Florida.
Oh yeah, just the ducks alone. The other day I saw one and I was like, oh, look at the duck, and it turned and it had like this really bright red, like satanic devil eye. I'm like, what
crazy
in the hell am I looking at?
Oh
or like
God.
there's this comedian, I can't remember who it is, but he has a bit where he talks about, he's like, I don't understand how we as people can ever be bored. Because you ever think about how your brain works? Think about that for a second. You think about how your own brain works. Your brain's thinking about itself working. That itself doesn't make sense.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. None of this makes sense at all.
Yeah, no.
So that's why I think in general, we need to stop taking ourselves so seriously and start being happy and positive and working together, because like, why are you going to be negative and serious and bring other people down when you don't even know why the fuck you exist or like what you are? So it's like, yeah, like guys, let's just embrace love, positivity, and working together to achieve our goals. Imagine if every human banded together, what stuff we could accomplish, like if we all had a common goal. Like people talk to me about aliens. If aliens were coming and then we could see them with telescopes and we were like, hey guys, this group of aliens, it looks like they're about to come and ransack us and take everything. They'll be here in 10 years. All of us would start working together in that 10 years to set up like an amazing defense. We would develop new technology. There are no limits to what we could do if we work together.
Develop new technology, new friendships, new alliances. You would realize, oh, maybe we have more in common with like Luxembourg than we ever would have thought.
Yeah, that's funny you bring up Luxembourg.
The only reason I do is because my buddy of mine did a presentation on it when we were younger and we were talking about it the other day.
Yeah. Yeah, we never hear too much about those little countries like Luxembourg, Liechtenstein.
Exactly, all those little...
Monaco.
Yep, I was going to say, there's so many of them just over in Europe that are just like the size of Rhode Island you just never hear about.
Yeah. Yeah, I was fascinated. Another thing, geography, let me just confirm this. How many countries would you guess are in North America?
I'd probably say like at least 10.
Yeah, there are 23, which is crazy. But I think you definitely know, like living in Florida, because you're close to the Caribbean, you know some of those other countries. And but my whole life I had thought there were only 3: Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And then I learned there are 23 countries in North America. Like, it's crazy. So you have you have Central America, which gets factored into that sometimes.
Yeah.
Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Cuba, Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Martinique, Dominica, and St. Kitts and Nevis, etc., Puerto Rico, DR, Haiti, Bermuda. Bermuda is not really a country. Some of those aren't countries, but I was just going off on... I was trying to say it really fast.
But yeah, it's crazy the amount of countries that are literally just within this one.
Yeah, and there are like 200 countries in the whole world, which is fucking crazy because we only talk about like 10 countries, and then there's like 200. It's crazy too that we're only 5% of the globe's population in the States, but I feel like we're like the topic of discussion, like in every country, we're like one of the primary topics of discussion. It almost gives us like a God complex in a way.
I feel like it definitely does. I feel like we're more of like what's it called? Like we're like a zoo exhibit for the rest of the world.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Let's check in on the Americans. What are they doing
Yeah.
now? Oh, they made a new Big Mac. Oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, like I interviewed a guy from London the other day and
Oh, cool.
he was like you guys are the reality show for the world. Like we tune in to watch the show that is America.
I was gonna say I got a buddy of mine from Australia, and he came over. We were doing shows for a little while together, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, "Yeah, I can't." He's like, "You guys are my favorite thing on the news." I'm like, "No, what?" He's like, you guys are always doing something stupid. I'm like, "Oh, thanks, Danny. I love it. I love that you're just watching the news to know what we're doing."
Yeah, it's like the you see the most extreme stuff happening in America, and it's
Oh,
like both. Uh, I think it has to do with Hollywood. Like like the entertainment industry has always been starting in America and everything,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like we know what sensationalism is. We know how to highlight things and how to make them go viral and what people want to see, and it's like really just built into our culture. So it's like and so it goes to the media, all the news. What are they talking about? They're finding the most crazy headline they can get from any event that happens. They'll compress it into the most absurd, exaggerated headline and spin it like that, and they'll only talk about the facts that make it look exaggerated and absurd because they know that people are going to watch that and they know that people are going to be into that because it's more exciting for us as viewers. We don't want to watch something boring. We want to
exactly.
have our most irrational and crazy fears confirmed. We want it's exciting, it's adrenaline. We want to be told
Yeah.
that we're right about the craziest shit that we believe. So
Oh,
it's like that's what the news on both sides of the aisle is catering towards and what they do. And I think that's a big cultural thing, like sensationalism, and the world can see that. So naturally, we're the most viral country if you think about it in internet terms.
yeah.
Um, yeah, we're a viral country, and I think it's good in a lot of ways. It's fun. It's definitely like a very fun country, but also super crazy,
Oh,
super
that
super
yeah.
crazy. And yeah, like whether it's Biden or Trump, it's always like we have some character. I guess it used to be not as crazy like with like Obama and Bush and presidents,
Right.
prior
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was less of a reality show. But they were still doing crazy things just like behind the scenes.
I feel like
Like,
it's just because we have social media nowadays.
yeah,
So like, there's always someone who just happens to walk by like a press conference, and it's like, oh, Trump chews out civilian or whatever. But in
really?
reality,
I haven't
yeah,
seen that. Did that
that's not
happen?
a real thing. I'm just making that up. But
Oh my
like,
God, that would be
see, that's how fast we
crazy.
can spin things. We can literally easily just be like a photo
Yeah,
of Trump pointing at someone, and the dude could be like, "Oh, Trump
yeah,
chews out civilian." In reality, the guy could be like, "Hey, where's the nearest bar?" And he's going, "Oh, it's right over there." But like, of course, because of how we are as Americans, we're like, "Oh no, we're gonna find the most entertaining aspect of this,"
yeah,
which is
yeah,
always someone getting yelled at, someone getting
yeah.
arrested.
Did you see that thing where they had like the government dinner that Trump was at, and then he was like all of the governors from the different states were at this dinner, and
Yeah.
then he got into an argument with the governor of Maine, and the
Oh,
she
that's
was like
awesome.
yelling at him, and they were going back and forth. Like it was so crazy.
That's like I remember back when him and Biden had their first. I think back in like 2016 when they first ran against each other.
Well, Hillary Clinton ran against.
Hillary Clinton. That's
Oh,
what it was.
maybe Biden ran back then. He might
No, it
have.
wasn't. It was when Trump. It was when Biden and Trump were going at it back during
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
I remember my friends and I. We would watch like the debates, but we would
Yeah.
turn it into like a drinking game. We're like, all right. When one of them insults the other one, you got to drink until they stop. And with Trump, we're just sitting there the whole time, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're totally right about that, and yeah, it's unfortunate to see it, and I would say like I agree with you. I'm not a very political person these days, and I don't buy into really any extreme or belief, and I'm not set in stone about it. And I think like with Trump, you definitely see him insulting people quite a bit. It's part of his brand, and I would also not hesitate to say that the other side, especially back then, the insulting that they give is more of like a hidden insult, but it
Yeah.
would be sort of like saying I'm smarter than you, I know that you're stupid, so I'm gonna tell you how things should be. And I think both ways of doing it is like offensive and not how we should be handling things
Yeah,
as you know, people and everything. And I'm not afraid to say that. I think like both sides, we should stop thinking about it as sides, and we should really just find what our goals are. And we
exactly.
should have more sides. There should be not two. It should be like 16 or something.
I
Like in
think we
some of
should,
these other countries, they've
I
got
think
a
we should have
lot.
like five minimum. That way, in case there's
Yeah.
like a tiebreaker or something, like it needs to be an odd
Yeah.
number, so that way it can be like, all right, we're clearly at a standstill.
Yes.
Stevie, what are we doing?
Yeah, assuming that there are over 300 million of us, assuming that all of us fall of into one of two ways of thinking to summarize all of our beliefs that are so complicated, and our stories and opinions and backgrounds. We're
Exactly.
not so simple. It's not all black and white. You can't say, well, it's complicated, obviously, but I'm
Exactly.
just giving my raw thoughts here
No,
into the
it's like
ether.
me comparing growing up in Boston as an Irish kid is not going to
Yeah,
be the same as my friend who grew up in Jamaica and then moved here when she was 10. Like, it's going to be a whole different
yeah,
experience.
yeah, 100%. Joe, before we wrap up, I want to say I just really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Hey, of course, Ben. I appreciate you having me on, bud. This was awesome.
Do you have any projects currently? When is your next show going to be, if you have one lined up? And what do you want people to know about you?
Well, I got shows all over Florida. Like I said, I'm based out of Melbourne, Florida. So if you're ever in Brevard County or Melbourne area, feel free to check me out at the Moon Room in O'Galley or Villain Coffee Shop in downtown Melbourne. I'm there 4 nights a week performing, which is a great
Yeah,
time. We have comics that come and visit from Daytona, Jacksonville, Orlando. We had a dude from Miami the other night came out, which was awesome. This upcoming Saturday and Sunday, I'll be doing a show with a guy from New York on Saturday and a guy from LA on Sunday. That's going to be great.
nice.
But I feel like just kind of the overall thing I'd like to people to take away from this is just, just be happy. Whatever you're doing, just do it with your full heart. That's all you really got to do. If you're someone who's in recovery and struggling, find someone to reach out to. Reach out to me. I really don't care if if that's someone you want to talk to. I'll gladly
Yeah,
talk.
reach out to us,
Yeah,
to Joe
absolutely.
or
Like
me.
that's something like Ben. You're awesome, man. This has been great. I appreciate the time and all that. This has been a lot of
Of
fun.
course, Joe. Where can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at JP Allan. Allan is Allan. Comedy. There you'll be able to find any shows I'm doing. You'll be able to find reels. You'll be able to find photos of me and other comedians. You'll be able to find. You might be interested. You'll be able to find other comics you could reach out
Of
to
course,
interview.
yeah.
Some of them that do podcasts and all that. Like I can get you in contact with them if you guys want to. Maybe you guys can collab, do an interview with each other, stuff like that.
100%, Joe. That's
Absolutely.
fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on. You can stay on for just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Like I'll just end the recording, and then I have some other stuff I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, no
But
problem.
okay, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful episode of I Think.
This has been
Joe,
an
you've
awesome
been
time, man.
amazing. We covered some fantastic topics that I was genuinely really interested in, and
Yeah,
learning about your story. I think you're a big inspiration to me and a lot of people out there. So thank you.
I
I'm gonna
appreciate it.
end the. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'll end the recording in three, two, one.